Welcome to the Simply Wild podcast. I'm your host, Sadie Jane, and we are coming back to the wild within us with every episode. We're still on Kauai, the gorgeous, stunning, healing island of Kauai, Mama Kauai, with my husband.
Hi, everyone. I am Jeff. I am back. Welcome. Welcome to Kauai. You'll be graced by the presence of roosters and chickens and the rain. So we love it here. It's really beautiful.
I convinced Jeff to set up the podcast stuff outside just because it's so absolutely stunning. So we'll see what decides to join us as far as sounds go. But today's a really special day. The energy is really, really intense. And, you guys will be, I guess, listening to this in a few days because we're recording it on Tuesday. But we're recording on the very last full moon of 2023.
And it's the cold moon.
Cold moon in...
I have no idea what that means, but it's the cold moon.
The cold moon in Cancer. It's actually in Cancer. And my moon is actually in Cancer. So I'm feeling all the things. Cancers are the sign. Cancer is all about emotions and tapping into emotions and really just being in tune and tuning into that. And man, I am feeling that. Also, this is my highest progesterone day. I don't know why I feel the need to tell you all the things that are happening to me right now. I just think it just feels really special when I get to record on days that are so significant for me, not just emotionally, but astrologically and all the things. So I'm deep in my luteal, highest progesterone day. I'm just really feeling emotional and also inward. Jeff was just saying how he's always so tired here. Yeah.
Yeah. I woke up this morning. I'm like, man, it's amazing how just tired I am here.
Yeah.
But granted, there's some nights where one night we stay up till midnight or 1 a.m. and we're up at 6. And then the next day, then it's in bed by 9 and wake up at 7 or 8. So we're kind of all over the place, but still it is a lot of energy. And man, taking the kids to the beach, it really is amazing and amazing memories, but it really wears you out.
We're just constantly adventuring. We went on a few mile hike this morning and it's such great memories. It's so special, but it definitely takes it out of you. But also not just that, but the energy here is so insane, especially during wintertime. You can really feel Mama Kauai holding you as you go inward. And winter solstice, like all the energy has just been so powerful.
What I love about Kauai is you really get to disconnect from home chores, jobs, all those types of things, like the normal everyday life. And it's fun to be able to come here and connect with each other. And like here, like you don't even really think about much as far as like back at home. And so it's always interesting to go back home and try and integrate some of those things back into home to where it's like, why can't we just live this
simple life here?
Simple, carefree life at home.
Everything just feels so, like you said, more simple, but also, the respect of the island is so interesting because everything, you have to be more mindful as far as, I don't know, just everything feels much more mindful, which is probably why it feels more slow and intentional. It's just our little family. So there's just not like a lot of people around or the hustle and bustle of town or
school and sports and friends and the activities and all the things.
It's nice to just be like, I'm just checking out and coming really inward. I mean, it's such a privilege and I just want to recognize that privilege. I actually did a post last week talking about how a few years ago we decided to switch gifts to adventures, experiences. And because my parents have, cattle here and property here, we have the insane privilege to come and stay here. But just because, it's my parents' property, we definitely still say with the kids, like, this is your gift. Like, we're not going to do big gifts. Our gifts are adventures and experiences. And so it just feels really special, and not just the family piece, but because we've been coming here for so many years. How many? 9 years now?
8 or 10 years.
Yeah. It's really seen us through not just our growth, but also our healing. Like, some of our most healing experiences and ceremonies have been on the island, and not just Kauai, but also the Big Island. Jeff and I both did a dieta. But before we go into that, I actually kind of want to stay in this idea of this last because it's the last full moon of 2023, I'm curious. I didn't ask you this before, so I'm just like, just going off the seat of my pants. But I'm curious, Jeff, what you want to let go of from 2023 and maybe like your most favorite moment from 2023.
Oh man. I will be honest, I'm not very good with like throwing things out just on the spot.
Yeah, Jeff's an emotional manifester, so
I really have
I'm
to
so
like
sorry I
think
didn't.
through things. Um, I think the biggest thing I want to let go of is the distractions. One thing I was going to also mention, the aspect that I love about being here is you're so present.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not really distracted by much. Like you're just very present.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we're here on the beach, when we're doing activities, when we're
Mm-hmm.
whatever, is just fully present. And so what I want to let go of is the distractions. I
Mm.
want to let go of the distractions within my mind, my body, my space, all the things, and make it to where it's like everything's intentional. Or at least when I am doing things as far as like taking the kids to their sports and doing even just doing the dishes, like just being fully present. And this has been something that's been kind of on my mind the last few months, like reading books and just being very intentional with the stuff that I've been
Consuming.
consuming and
Mm-hmm.
reading and listening to is just all about just being here now, just being here in the present. So like even for example, when I am doing dishes, pay attention to the smell of the soap, pay attention to even just the temperature of the water, the temperature of
Mm.
the room, the sounds, the if you've got music playing, just all those
The
things.
senses.
Yeah, the senses, instead of maybe when you're doing dishes, you're thinking about, and I'm guilty of this, I'll be doing dishes, and while I'm doing dishes, I'm frustrated because I'm like, I would rather be doing
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
else.
It's romanticizing your life.
Yeah. Or if I'm taking the kids to their sports, I'm frustrated that I'm not at home
Yeah.
doing stuff with the horses or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just being present in the now. Um, my highlight of the year, I would definitely say, can it be two things?
Sure.
And I know this is kind of leading into the topic of
Oh,
today.
okay. I'm so curious to hear what you're going to say.
The highlights of my year are for sure Simply Wild Medicina.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Um,
We did not script that. We
no.
did not script that.
But yeah, Medicina is for sure my highlight because the most transformative moments of my life, especially in this last year, have come from spring Medicina,
Mm-hmm.
especially spring Medicina.
Mm-hmm.
And then fall Medicina was also really special. But both
Mm-hmm.
of them in general are just very special, highlighted moments within this last year.
Amazing. Thank you. That was so good.
Well, how about you?
Um, okay, so I definitely want to let go of, I feel like I'm continually letting this go. Just like an artichoke, right? Like it's layer by layer getting to the heart. And I definitely feel as a Capricorn, as an ego projector, as somebody who has a lot of maybe feminine and masculine woundings, I really, and I also feel like I was raised in a culture where it was a lot of hustle. Like if you hustle, you're going to be successful. And so I'm continually letting go of the hustle. I'm continually letting go of things having to be hard for them to transform me, things having to be hard for them to make a change. So this last year was really, really powerful. I actually haven't even talked on the podcast yet about Sacred Rebels, but for sure, 2023 has been my favorite of all time, my favorite year, probably of my whole life. Including Medicina, including Sacred Rebels, but because of we have created a lot of new things this year. We've launched a lot of new things. The period underwear, the podcasts, like all these things. Our kids are getting older. They've said they've entered into new phases. Lots of newness this year.
Well, this was even the first year that we did all gender Medicina.
Yeah,
Because in 2022 was the first year we launched Medicina,
it was all women's,
but 23 was the first year
and
we
it was the
did.
first year we did twice in
Yes.
1 year. We'll get to under. You probably have no idea what we're talking about. We'll get there. It's just been a massive year, and it's been really interesting because there's been a lot of ease and flow in that. And also there's been a lot of, I mean, I have probably launched because of Sacred Rebels, which is my mentorship certification course. It's a year-long course, year-long mastermind. But because of that, I've really launched like a new thing every month. And although it's been really powerful, life-changing experience for me, it's also been really intense. I didn't know it was going to be so much work, but it's something I wouldn't take back. I'm very, very proud of it. Um, but I think I just want to let go of things being hard. I want to let go of things feeling like they have to be difficult. And, um, this year has really shown me that it can be a mix of both. And also, I really, especially towards the end of the year, I really let go of things being difficult and I just trusted and channeled. And it was easier. Like I was so worried about every single month because every single month has a theme. And yet it was perfect. I was also so worried about Medicina, and yet it was perfect. And the more it has been easily one of the most difficult things I've had to learn. And yet every time I trust, it shows up again and again and again for me that it is all through the ease, all through the trusting that the most transformative experiences in your life happen. So rather than having that lesson every single time I create something, instead, I'm going to just trust that lesson. So in 2024, I'm trusting the ease. I'm letting go of the hardship. I'm really wanting to officially let that go. It's been something. Here's what it is. Every time there's something new, I like learn this lesson and then I do something more new or more intense, or like, because I definitely feel like as I strengthen who I am and as my offerings become deeper and as I become deeper, it's like I've taken to my next edge, and it's like I have to learn the lesson again and again and again. I would rather not have to learn it again. Like, I really feel like I can trust the ease that can come with creation and birthing something, even if it's the newest thing, even if it's the bigger thing, even if it's, this thing I've never done before, which I did a lot of this year. So I'm letting go of the hardship of that.
Would you say your intention for 24 is ease and grace?
Ease and grace.
Ease and grace.
Ease and grace. Yeah.
You are all about just pushing the bounds, like going to the limit, trying the thing that's like the hardest, most intense. And one thing that's amazing that I've witnessed in the 15 years of our marriage is it always works out.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm there telling you, like, Sadie, it's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to work out
Mm-hmm.
perfectly. Like, you have nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's my reminder and blessing unto you for
thanks, babe.
24 is just, you got this.
Yeah. It's trusting. Like, I am an intense person. I don't think that it's ever going to change. I think it's one of my gifts, but it's trusting the ease and the intensity. I would love to be able to finally trust that, because there are a lot of times when I doubt myself, and I think that the hardship comes with my doubt of myself. And if I could just let go of that, I know that that has a lot to do with like spiritual abuse, honestly, growing up and feeling like I'm not doing things right, or that I'm sinning, or just because I'm not doing it a certain way or someone else's way, that I'm doing it wrong. I really want to be done with that. And the more I create and the more I trust and the more things actually work out, the more I trust that. And I'm ready for that. In fact,
well, it reminds me of like the saying that you always say at the end of like your classes and your yoga flows, where you say you're never too much and always enough.
mm-hmm.
I love the always enough part.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are always enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of us growing up in we'll just say most religions, is you're kind of taught like you're never enough and you're always a sinner and you always need someone else or something else, or you need to do more and more to make up for the difference. And so just trust that you're a good person and that you're more than enough and that you got this.
Yeah. Thanks. I think, did you see there's like something going around right now on Instagram where it's like, share your who you are, like an about me. And it talks about like your age and your pets and your biggest fear. And my biggest fear was institutions that tell me to be somebody I'm not, or something like that. And I was like, is that too deep? But I really feel like that's where it stems, this idea. But even with me saying that, I'm taking away the accountability in myself because I'm blaming it on something. I'm so grateful for the opposition of that, because with the opposition, I chose, or I was able to see what I don't want. Now that I see that, I get to choose, like I get to make it easeful. The only person that's making it difficult or hard is me. And so if I really trust that, then that's all that matters. So I'm calling that in. And with that, my highlights, oh my gosh, my highlights of this year, there's so many. It's just literally been one of my favorite years, and also one of the most difficult. But definitely Simply Wild Medicina and Sacred Rebels. And I'll talk about Sacred Rebels in my next podcast, or one coming up, because it's just such a rad creation. But let's talk about Medicina, shall we? Simply
Let's
Wild
talk about
Medicina.
Medicina. So I just want to preface that initially the first retreat that Sadie ever put on was Simply Wild backpacking. And we did like 6 of them, I think.
Yeah, it's still a creation that we love, but yeah, about 6 of them.
And I loved it. I wasn't able to go backpacking with you girls, but I was at least there when you would show up, and then I would see you guys off, and then I would see you return. And my favorite part about it was seeing all the girls come, and they, like, the best way I could like describe it is they were like just a bunch of scared little birds, just terrified.
I mean, we're backpacking in the backcountry with no cell service.
None of them know each other.
None of them. Most of them have never backpacked. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah. So they show up, they've met all these there's 12 girls, and then 14 plus Sadie and the guide, her co-guide. And so it's just, everyone's just scared. Like they're in essence scared. They've got things that they're wanting to work on or let go of. And then I see you guys return, and it's like amazing.
Yeah.
Just transformations have taken place.
Yeah.
They are connected. They're best friends. You just see the light in their eyes. They're just glowing. So to experience that, and then to experience Simply Wild Medicina, oh my word, it was like on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Like I thought the transformations that took place at backpacking were huge. Man, the transformations at Medicina there's not even a word to really describe it. They're immense. They're infinite. They're just out of this world.
Well, and the cool thing about both of those, honestly, and actually the evolution of Simply Wild is the actually, it first was, before it was a podcast name, was the name of my, like, the retreat side of Simply Sadie Jane. And there are so many retreats that I want to create. In fact, women empowerment and a business ones, and I'm doing a Sacred Rebels one this next year. But all of them have to do with, and this is really how I operate all of my business, is they have to do with something that has changed my life, and I want to then bring it to the world, to these women or men or all genders. And backpacking really changed Jeff and I's life. And really, feminine empowerment has also changed both of our lives. And whether Jeff's involved, like consciously or in the physical, he's always helping the prep work. Like, he is the best masculine pillar in Simply Sadie Jane. I couldn't do it without him. So it's interesting because yoga retreats are great. I think that there's a spot for them. But for me, my retreats, I've just always wanted them to be so transformational. And plant medicine has been so massive in our life. So massive. Did you talk about your plant medicine experiences very much on the last podcast?
No.
I can't remember. So I'll just start here, and then I'll turn the time over to Jeff for a second. Turn the time over to you. But it was actually my very first ceremony, and I really didn't know much about grandmother at all. I just knew that I was called to sit. And if you guys remember, I hadn't had any kind of experience with any kind of psychedelics. Like, I had used medical cannabis very little, and I actually kept it from Jeff for like a year. And it helped with my anxiety, and it was amazing. But it's very, very different than grandmother. Like, I might as well have been sober. I had never really experienced anything mind altering, physicality altering, So when I felt called and I sat, I remember thinking, I have to bring this to my community because ultimately, grandmother is an elevated expression, an elevated entity, an elevated being of what I had already been teaching in the most respectful way, which was all about coming home to yourself, self love, accountability, integrity, all these things. And so I just had this feeling like, I don't know how, I don't know when, but somehow I want to be able to create a space to get this medicine in an ethical way to my community. And I just kind of spoke that prayer in the middle of ceremony. I just felt like it was so important. And I also, when I spoke that prayer, it was very clear that I was going to keep this experience to myself for a while because it wasn't like, at least for me, I couldn't just like get on Instagram and be like, oh my gosh, you guys, I just did ayahuasca, it changed my life. For me, it was like I needed to integrate for a couple years. Like it was really important.
Well,
Not,
you also had to like get to know it. You
yeah,
had to
there's so
spend
much.
a lot of time doing different retreats, different dietas.
Mm-hmm.
Dietas are a week or two where you sit in ceremony as well as every day you drink a specific tea. Sadie's was tobacco, mine was Bobansana. There's just so many levels to where you get to know
Mm-hmm.
just how the ceremony takes place, what all the different things mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so complex.
Yeah, and it was just such a life-changing experience. And I specifically felt really grateful and called to continue with the lineage that I had learned from and sat with the very first time. I was like, okay, there's so much more. It opened up a whole nother, not just dimension, obviously, but world in the 3D of learning. I had so much to learn. And my intention was never to serve the medicine ever, but I wanted to be somehow not just an intricate piece, but just a vessel, a channel, an instrument into helping um,
To help others,
continue
for,
find this medicine
yeah, to
for
help
people.
people find it and have
Yeah.
this experience.
So really for the past 4 years, I've been in a deep apprenticeship, a deep understanding, learning education from these particular beautiful shamans and guides who are through the lineage of Ama Sophia Rose. So I'm actually going in a couple weeks to learn from her and be with her for a couple weeks. And I've just been in really deep learning. And like I said, not to ever serve this particular medicine, but to just hold space. And do I go straight into Medicina now, or do you want to share a bit of your experience with grandmother?
Um,
Like, did you feel like you wanted to do something similar, or I know that you have a very special relationship with grandmother.
yeah, I'll start here. I would say grandmother or ayahuasca has really become a big buzzword, either on podcast or on social media. A lot of people have been talking about it, doing it, experiencing it. And so I think there's a lot of people out there that are extremely curious about it and want to participate in the experience. But they don't necessarily know where to go, how to do it, what it all entails. And so what's beautiful about this experience is that you've been able to provide this container to where people can be able to experience something that's so powerful in a safe, effective way. And so, um, as far as like my first experience, I mean, or just my experience in general with the medicine is it's been extremely powerful and extremely transformative. And so when I do hear the things on podcasts or when I do read the things on social media, I know exactly what they're talking about and I really resonate with them. And so for those who haven't sat with it, it can be very curious for them, but then also very hard for them to even fully understand what exactly they're talking about. And so that's like for me, I'm that way where I don't share much about it. Like at all
Mhm.
on like social media.
Yeah.
I keep it just very private. I'll talk about it with people that I'm close with. Um,
Do you have
I
one?
mean, even just talking right now on this podcast is the first time like I've really opened
Yeah.
up about it. And so, yeah, the first time I sat with it was just a few months after the first time Sadie sat with it, and it
It was crazy.
was
Like when
mind
we,
blowing.
sorry, I just wanted to interrupt really quick because when I sat, I came home and it was like during the time when we were like, I don't know if we're going to stay married.
Yeah, we were in a rough spot, and just about anything that Sadie does, at least pay attention to the changes that take place.
But also, you're pretty, wouldn't you say, at least back then, you were pretty anti, like you're pretty
Yeah, I
apprehensive.
was very apprehensive, very closed minded. And I think a lot of men are this way. I mean, both of us get messages from women where they're like, how do I get my husband on board with this type of stuff? This stuff, even just being meditation or mindfulness. Because most men they're just closed minded, or they're totally content with where they're at. But one thing I've always paid attention to is the changes that take place, the
Mm-hmm.
changes within you, outside of you, the changes within our home. And the first time that you sat, I saw some big changes. And I would dare to say that the medicine was calling to me.
Yeah. I mean,
And so,
immediately you were like, I want to try that. I was
yes,
astonished. You're like, I would do that. And I was like, what?
yeah.
So you could, yeah, absolutely. I think the medicine was calling you.
Because I feel that for a lot of people out there, like if it's something that you're feeling called to, and I use the word called very heavily, then do it. But if it's not something that you want to do, I'll use the word recreationally. It's not something that you want to do just for fun.
Well,
This is something that is very
yeah.
intentional,
Yeah.
and it's a calling. It's something that you are
Yeah.
called to it.
I had no idea like the preparation that went into it. That's another reason why it's like you can't. I mean, I guess you could do it recreationally. I would never mess with this energy, with grandmother energy in a disrespectful way. And I feel like recreationally is really disrespectful. I didn't know what went into it until, I found it, and you guys can listen to other previous podcasts back as to like that story. But it was so sacred, the whole prep of it, the whole detoxing, the diet, the
Yeah, because to even prepare for it, you have to like get off all medications. You have to eat a very bland diet for
yeah,
like 2 weeks. Like
yeah,
you've got to get off all salts, sugars, fats.
yeah.
Like it's intense to prepare for it. So
So your
my
first,
first
yes.
experience was mind blowing. I mean, mind blowing. I could not believe the realms that you could visit within your own mind, body, and soul. It's really difficult to put it into words. But the biggest thing for me that I came out of that first experience was just a deep gratitude of self love for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a full takeaway that I've had in sitting with grandmother for the last, well, I've only done it like 15 times, where Sadie's done it 20 or 30.
Yeah, almost
uh,
30.
30. And, but as a, like as a culmination of all of my experiences, I would say that I've come out of it with a lot more confidence and self-love, compassion, understanding. I mean, before I wouldn't say that I had much of an open heart, to where I
Mm.
had like an open heart and self-love for myself,
Mm.
as well as an open heart and love for others.
Mm-hmm.
Like before, I was just very, I don't know, just very like transactional. Like nothing was done through the heart. It was
Mm.
just done by like, I do this, I pay you for this, you pay me for that. We work, we build things, we clean, we do
Robot.
service. Yeah, just very robotic, very matrixy like. And whereas through all of these experiences, it's really allowed me to tap into, I'll say, like my feminine space. So it's really been incredible. And I don't really want to go into detail about every single one of my ceremonies.
Do you have one experience that you want to share here that was just like super profound
I don't know if I necessarily like I have some very profound ones, but those profound
or like the
ones
most sacred?
are the most sacred that I just would rather keep
Keep.
not in this space. And
I
for
respect that,
those
babe.
for those of you who have done this, like you know what I'm talking about. But for those who haven't done it, what I'm referring to is I'm referring to things that had or were really troubling me, like things that were really
Mm,
occupying my mind in a very heavily distracting way.
mm,
I was able to heal those, remove those, provide a new understanding for those moments to where it really allowed me to continue to step into just being here now in the
mm-hmm,
present.
mm-hmm,
Because there's so much stuff that we ingest through
mm-hmm.
the course of our life, whether as children or young adults or adults,
So
where
much
we,
conditioning.
yes, we ingest so much stuff, whether it's things that we ingest on our own or things that we're told, that yes, it conditions us and it creates us into this identity that maybe we don't necessarily want to be that identity or be that person. And this really allows you to go in and heal and let go of those things. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's like they say it's like 10 years of therapy in one night.
oh, 100%. So, one thing that I remember was like my first sit, the way that I described it to someone, it was as if like my brain, because I remember like my conscious was able to kind of like step out away from my brain. And it was like my brain and soul and everything were all one piece. And it was like this, like this intense, I want to say supercomputer, like just kind of picture this like really beautiful, intense supercomputer that maybe has been like discovered in outer space. Like kind of picture something like from a Marvel movie or like Star Wars. Just
Okay.
follow me along here.
Okay.
So you've just discovered maybe it's like a star. Just picture something that looks really intricate, intense. That was what I felt like my mind was. And all the tools, all the knowledge, all the everything was there and had always been there. And what sitting with grandmother did is it unlocked things with it. It gave me codes and passwords to where I was able to step out and away from it and to then see it. So I'm looking at it, and then I was able to look like through it, in it, around it, inside of it. I was able to move things around, reposition, restructure. I was able to take things away. I was able to see things from a different perspective. Um, and by doing that, there was so much healing that took
Mm-hmm.
place in
Mm-hmm.
that moment. I was able to, in the matter of like, I'll say seconds,
Mm-hmm.
milliseconds, travel time frames, like
Mm-hmm.
let's say 10, 20 years of memories that had all kind of linked together, that had created like a pattern within me or a story within me, to where I was able to link all those moments together and in essence clean them out, repattern my thought process with them. It was really powerful.
Yeah, the word technology keeps coming to me because we're in the age where so much new technology is coming through, right? AI, for example. Yet there is nothing more profound. There is no more profound technology than the technology of Mother Earth. And we are just an essence of that. We are an essence of the cosmic.
That's what it felt like to me. It felt like AI technology. It
Yeah,
was
which is funny because
so
AI is
intense.
created by man, and yet we can't even fathom recreating technology that is the earth.
Yes.
And yet we're trying to, because we're trying. I don't know whether it's, I actually don't. I don't have a lot of like intense thoughts on AI other than I definitely think we need to be mindful. But I'm saying that because I find that we're stepping away from the technology that we've been literally just birthed with and given on this planet. And I really feel like the planet Earth is the most technologically advanced place. And yet we're almost stepping away from that.
Well,
And
we're almost like stepping away from trusting our own minds
yeah,
and trusting
and trusting our Earth.
AI and a computer
Hmm.
instead of just trusting ourselves.
Yeah, and I just love the way that you explained grandmother because she is so wise and so beyond her technology. And even just saying that, not in a disrespectful way, but her technology is so advanced. It's all of the cosmos embodied. It's all the dimensions embodied. And how what a gift that we've been given this in beautiful earth to utilize all these different tools. Every single thing that is put on this earth is an opportunity for us to learn from, a property, an essence, an experience, uh, something that we can that can help us. Because really, whether we like it or not, and maybe we get past this, but at least on our, this is what I talk about when we're talking about spiritual awakening or growing up or understanding, even if you don't call it spiritual awakening, understanding your own truth. Our life has been paved in this one view, this 3D view of us, of our underdeveloped brains, of our prefrontal cortex not being developed, of children from conception to 7 being highly manipulated, whether we understood it or not, or whether our parents understood it or not, like molded into these people.
I've never felt more like my genuine self
Yeah.
than after I've sat.
And what a gift that we have these opportunities and properties and experiences and minerals and technologies and spirits, literal spirits, to help us reclaim these vessels, these cosmic meat suits that we're in. Um, and I love that because grandmother can't create. Like, I think a lot of people are worried. And I definitely want to have the caveat of plant medicine's not for everybody. I do believe that, I'm not sure if I said this before or not, but plant medicine absolutely can accelerate healing, can accelerate coming into yourself. But I do believe that if your goal is that and you don't want to be with plant medicine, eventually you'll get there. It just might take you longer. But I love that she can't create anything, as far as people are so worried about being ungrounded. And of course, the integration is so essential, but she just illuminates things like flashlight, just showing things, ways that we've allowed things to come into our body that aren't ours.
So another analogy that I love to describe to people who don't understand it is, imagine like this very intense, complex building with just thousands and millions of doors,
Mm.
and then those doors are connected to hallways to other doors that lead to these like beautiful rooms that have things stored inside of them. You wouldn't be able to find that path to that room on your own. All grandmother does is illuminates and shows the path to that room, to that space.
Yeah.
And I feel like going back to like what you were saying, like grandmother doesn't create anything, it just illuminates what's already inside of us.
Yeah.
I can't say that I've had anything in any of my experiences, because every single one of my sits have all been
Yeah.
different. Like my first one where I was like pulled out of my mind and saw like the supercomputer, I've never had that ever since
Sense.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every experience is different. Now I've received downloads in the sits, but I would dare to say that those downloads were already things that I already knew or already heard,
Mm.
but I just didn't know how to access
Mm.
that hallway or that those doors
Sure.
to that room. Everything is stored within us.
Yeah. And we're all
Within,
connected.
yeah, there's everything stored inside of our
Yeah.
DNA. I've had things that have been illuminated from ancestral stuff, like from my ancestors, because I mean, my DNA is tied to my
Yeah.
ancestors. Now, everyone's experience can be different. Their viewpoints on things can be different. So, like, my viewpoint on it can be different than yours, as well as other people and their experiences. But in general, For those of you who have heard lots of people online, on podcasts, wherever, talk about it, just get curious. I would highly suggest not to YouTube it and watch documentaries, but just trust the stuff that you're listening to and reading,
Or
because you
even
just,
just trust the call. Like the powers and the curiosity. Like it's just like childbirth. You're never going to understand what your experience is because you will never know until you're in it.
but you're gonna, I would say you'd be amazed that once you get curious about it and feel the call, you're going to run into people who have either sat or who have experience with it, and then you can then ask them questions.
Yeah.
But it's really powerful stuff. And so I just, I've heard a lot of people, I listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of different things, and I've heard people talk about it, and I don't really like the way that some people
Well, there's a lot
portray
of
it.
like a
Because like right
yeah.
now it's a big buzzword.
And people love
It's,
to make fun of it and
yes,
they love to shame it and they love to ridicule things they don't understand. And most of the time it's the shame and the ridicule from people who've never sat or
yeah, they don't understand it. And that was the biggest thing for me at the beginning, was I gave it a identity, as in I said, oh, this is only for hippies. And then I went into my first sit and I looked around. I'm like, yeah, there's hippies here, but majority of the people here are just people.
yeah.
They're just people looking to heal,
Mm-hmm.
awaken, celebrate,
Mm-hmm.
expand their lives. They're just people just like the rest of us. I was sitting next to secretaries and
Yeah.
accountants and CEOs and mothers and fathers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay, I have a question for you actually, because I could say my point of view, but I love the way you explain things. So I've had people be like, "Oh, you're just using this as an excuse to get high.
no,
This is just an excuse to get high."
no,
Tell me why. Why not, Jeff?
because it is not easy work. For those people that say, oh, it's just an easy high, I don't know who those people are or if that's the type of high that they enjoy,
Well, first
but
of all,
it
it's not
is
addicting.
not, yeah, it's not addicting. It's not something that you would want to do just
Dude, it's so much
at your
work.
home on the couch. It is, and I want to try and explain this in the best way I can. It is the deepest, darkest, heaviest, intense work, with at the end the most light filled, heart, body, soul, mind
God
warming,
connecting.
connecting experience you can ever have. So you can, there's different ways that people can go out and go, let's say, get a high. This is not what I would say is a high. This is, it's work. I mean, it is intense. Like, you are, there's purging involved. Now the purging can be throwing up. Now it's, I want to expound on that, because it's not like it's not like when you're sick and you throw up. When you purge, and I don't want to say the word throw up in a ceremony, when you purge, you are letting go of things.
Of energy.
You're letting go of, it could be anything. It could
Yeah.
be false beliefs, it could be trauma, it could be past relationships, it can be just about anything you can think of. And when you let that go, it is the most liberating,
Yeah.
like,
Incredible
incredible
feeling.
experience.
Yeah.
But in the middle of just the ceremony in general, it is dark, it's intense,
It
like
can be,
it's
yes.
in.
Some people have
And
pure bliss.
I don't want to say dark's not the right word, it's
Well,
just
I
intense.
just think people have a different definition of dark. Dark to some people means satanic and evil. I've never, ever, ever
Yeah,
felt that.
it's not that, it's just intense.
It
It's
is
just,
dark's a good word for it because it's the shadow of it. There is light and there is dark.
yeah, because you're facing your shadows, you're
But I want to
doing
say
intense
totally.
shadow work.
I want to also mention that the purging piece. I find it really interesting how I don't know who this person is necessarily, but I find it interesting how the world has, I would say, demonized even like our body's ways of releasing things. So, like hawking up a loogie or throwing up or blowing your nose or using the restroom, like we're so private and we're almost so ashamed of those things, and yet our saliva is literally one of the most precious gifts. In fact, our menstruation blood, like our mucus, our fluids, uh, illuminating um, through urination, like our kidneys literally are a way to process grief, and purging by means of throwing up can be the most powerful way to relieve ourselves as well. But we're worried about it because we think that that means we're sick. That means we have, especially sickness has been so demonized last handful of years. So,
Well, that's one thing that I've learned through all this whole process is like when either of us are sick, especially like with like, let's say like a stomach bug, it's like, okay, this isn't so much like a sickness. This is energy that needs
yeah,
to be let go
this
of.
dis-ease,
Yeah.
like what is it?
So I want to go back just a little bit to my very first sit, like where I was talking about how I was like so worried that I was going to be like not fitting in, where I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to be
Mm-hmm.
in a space with a bunch of hippies and this is going to be so awkward. I felt so at home and welcomed and invited. But one thing that was interesting is I also felt very confused, or in ways lost, or just like I had no idea what was going on and what really to expect. So the one thing that I love about Simply Wild Medicina
Mm-hmm.
is Sadie has done an incredible job
Mm-hmm.
at creating this experience for people who are feeling the call but aren't sure where, how, what, when, where. This is the ultimate experience for those who have never done it before, to where we call it Ayahuasca 101. Like
You like to call it that,
I like to call it Ayahuasca
yeah.
101 because it is an incredible experience for people to come and have a good experience versus like the first times that we were sitting, we just showed up to a big space. It was an incredible experience, but we didn't really understand and know all the different tools that were used. We didn't understand the flow of the ceremony. We didn't understand like the
Yeah, the
directions,
technology that was
the
being used,
technology. Yes.
the heritage, the sacredness of all of the different tribes it came from. Like and we were curious. We
Yes.
wanted to honor those.
So I say that because I'd like for you to kind of explain to us
Yeah.
listeners what Medicina is. What would they expect from this incredible experience?
Yeah. So I definitely, when I found grandmother, or when she found me and I started communing with her and really understanding or getting to know her, it was very clear that I just felt like I was supposed to bring this to my community in any kind of way, and I didn't know what that was, which is why, like I said at the beginning, I didn't know. I didn't really talk about it initially, um, because of the sacredness and because I just wasn't sure. I just didn't know, and it felt very much like if this was going to work, I had to be really respectful, not just of her and her medicine, but also of ethics, of um, all the different powerful lineages that this had can't come from, and not just her, like I said, but like the
You wanted to
the direction
really,
wheel, and
yeah, you really wanted to respect, like ultimate
it's the most
respect
important part for me,
of the medicine, because there's people out there that they will buy it online and they'll get
which
together
is
and they'll do
so
it in the basement of someone's
mind
home.
blowing to me. And I did have a feeling, which is why it took me 4 years even to create Medicina, because I knew that if it was meant to be, it would happen. And it was really not, it was never even me. It's not even about me. And I want to make that very clear. Like, I am just a vessel. So I just became like an apprentice of not just the grandmother, but also Alma Sophia Roses and the guides that are underneath her and her lineage. And I just really became dedicated to understanding, because, some people will sit with grandmother once and they feel great and they feel called, they feel healed, they celebrated, they are going to integrate that their whole life. I don't actually know why this is a part of my path, but it's a piece of Simply City Jane. And no, it's not all of it. And there are many different experiences. I mean, I've guessed that the podcast right now is pretty heavily plant medicine focused, but it's definitely not all of it. It's just a piece of what we do, but it's such a important piece that is just important for me to share. So after probably 20-ish ceremonies, and I would go back to learn and to prepare myself and to also learn how to be a helper and hold space. So I definitely help either by holding some of the sacred herbs or assisting in different ways in the ceremony. Um, but there were just like different signposts that would be like, yes, this is your path. Yes, this is your path. People would ask me, I'd talk about how I'd sat with grandmother and they'd be like, well, who'd you sit with? And it wasn't as easy to be like, at the time, it wasn't as easy to just be like, oh, well, these are the guides, because the guides would come and they would do ceremonies, but like all their ceremonies would fill up. And then also there was like something deep within me, and whether it was correct or not, I just felt like I didn't want them to just go and sit. Like I really wanted them.
Because that's what we did on our first ones is we would just
Yeah, and
go
it
and
was
sit,
fine,
and then we'd go home and integrate by
but it
ourselves.
also
Or
took, yeah, and it took me so many ceremonies to actually understand what was going on. And I didn't, I just, I kept getting visions and dreams of this experience where it was perfectly orchestrated to help people, if they felt called, to have an experience that weaved so beautifully, where it didn't just help them prepare for the medicine, but it helped them integrate. And integration is the most important part. Integration is when the sit is powerful, but it's when you actually, what you learn in the sit, what is how you take what you've learned in the sit back home with you. It's when you're doing dishes and you're deep in your luteal and you feel depressed, or your kids are struggling, or things are happening in your everyday life that you can't control. That is, the integration is how you take the 5D and bring it to the 3D.
it is probably the most important part, because here's a good example for people out there. It'd be like going to the gym and having just a really good intense workout and then immediately going and smashing 12 donuts and a big huge thing of
Yeah.
chocolate milk. That's not
I mean,
good for your body.
for someone's glycogen storage, maybe.
Well,
But
but
yes,
what
the
I'm getting
opposite of
at
the opposite.
is like you go to the gym to like lift weights and get stronger and fit and lose weight and burn calories, and then to then leave the gym and basically go consume food that's not healthy for you. That's like the opposite of
Yes.
integration. And so
Yes.
integration is like key. It's
Key.
vital. It's going home and being mindful of your energy, your family's energy. It's journaling. It's continuing the
Yeah.
process.
And my retreats, or even just my experience, the way I teach as a guide, as a teacher, is I weave experiences from beginning to end. So I'm going to teach you something by helping you understand maybe the painful parts of it, or the shadow parts of it, or understanding what you're lacking from that, or what you think you're lacking, and then weaving a teaching to, at the end, you feel complete and you feel whole. And it's not even that I've given you anything other than I've helped you remember that you have everything within you. So this was just a dream of mine for many years, and I knew I had to really be mindful about how I went about it, because it's just not something you mess with. And I also knew that if it was going to happen, it was supposed to happen. And I just had that prayer. So
And it was intense. I remember when you first came to me with the idea, I was like, there is no way we can pull this off.
yeah.
Like this is
And I
it's
went back
intense.
to ceremony again and again and prayed about it. It was my intention. Are you sure this is it? Like, I'm supposed to make a retreat at bringing in these guides, um, and every time it was like, yes, yes, just trust. And it was easily my most terrifying creation I've ever created. Easily.
But I would also say it came together so effortlessly.
Yeah.
It was almost like the things were just placed either in front of you,
Yeah.
or people came to you and said, "Hey,
Yep.
like
Yeah. This is
talk about like just the ranch
for
in
sure.
general."
For sure. This was absolutely divinely orchestrated by God, my higher self, my angels and guides, earth. Like, and I'll say again, this is nothing to do with me, other than I had the bravery to say yes to something like this. And it's not even necessarily something that's never been done before. I don't know, because I've never been to a retreat for grandmother before, so I don't even know what they do there. Um, anyway, but
As in, like, you've never gone to Peru to some of these retreat centers, which,
it
or
doesn't.
just even
I mean, Peru's
Mexico,
one, but like
but
Costa
like,
Rica, like I've never been to a retreat
correct.
center where they're like, this is what we're doing for 5 days. Like all of my sits, I've been to dietas, I've been to the jungle, I've been to Hawaii, but never a retreat where, yeah, it's from like start to end. It's a ceremony with grandmother. So, um, I was literally just creating from like channeling from God and from Earth Mother and all these things. And so,
And also with what you felt like you would have wanted for your
of
experiences.
course,
Like, if you
yeah.
had to have gone and done it day one, you're brand new, have no idea what you're doing. What do you feel
Well, that
like?
was my biggest reason as to why I wanted to do it, because I felt like my community specifically, if I was going to bring these guides and this medicine, I had a responsibility to fill as far as giving these people all the tools that I knew consciously I was aware of to help them integrate them into their life, because a lot of these people, or at that time when I was creating this initially, a lot of them were mothers. And so I'm like, how can I help them have this incredibly life-changing healing experience so they can get off their meds if they feel like they want to, which also a caveat, if you are on meds, I honor and respect wherever anybody is, but the cool thing about grandmother for me is I've been addicted to meds, and I'm now off of them, and I can say from my experience, it is, I feel so much more myself. So throughout all this, it was probably a dream. Like I said, it started in 2020, and it's been almost 4 years now. Very very beginning of 2020, right? Yeah. Um, and so I was like, I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to let it be a prayer of mine to bring this to my community, and we'll just see kind of how it happens. So I felt very called to just learn about the medicine and go deep, and it's definitely a sacrifice. It's definitely commitment. It's like it's just living your life in a higher caliber, and of course I'm no different than any other human. I just have chosen that path, right?
I
But
will say, watching you in those, in that space, it's like you just know what to do. It's like you've always been there. It's like you were raised in it, almost like it just is like second nature for you when you're in a
yeah,
ceremony space. It's
yeah,
really special.
thank you. I mean, I definitely feel like ceremony spaces, you know, when you hold space as a yoga teacher, or you hold space doing breath work, or you hold space for sacred rage or sexual embodiment or whatever it is, I even go back to like when I was a child and there were like little kids on the playground, and I'd run up to them and be like, let me just stand by you. Like, my mom's a nurse. How can I help you? Like, whether I understand it or not, holding space has been something that's really called to me. And so I feel really honored that I can learn about these quantum realms and help hold space in these spaces, because the healing is just so exponential. So, as this has kind of continued to grow, and as I have very openly in a prayer, if this is meant to happen, if this is actually meant to be, God, please like help me find a way to do that. And if it's not meant to be, it won't happen. And that was really my prayer.
Yeah.
Like if this is actually supposed to happen, it will be.
Yep.
So I get invited to go to this ranch by a friend, and this private ranch. And I go there, and immediately I get emotional. I mean, there is a ceremony spot to sit at, there's all these cabins. And the manager of the ranch looked at me, and she didn't know me. She didn't know who I was, but she said, I want you to come, I want you to bring medicine here. I want you to host ceremonies here. And I thought it was so bizarre. And I was like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to do it. This is where I'm supposed to do it. And it's not going to be me that serves the medicine. I'm going to invite in these guides, these ethical guides that I've learned from, that have this powerful ethical lineage, that I feel so honored, and also such a huge divine pillar of light that I found or was guided and led to them, because there are so many different guides so many different lineages that I could have stumbled upon. The fact that I started in that lineage and have now continued to carry that on and learn from that is just such a gift. So that was my invitation as a projector to come into this space. So that was like, oh, well, the space has called us in. That's one of them.
And the space is mind
Mind
blowing.
blowing. If you guys have
Like
seen the videos,
if there's one thing that's the hardest for us to do, it's finding retreat spaces
yeah,
that just work. Like homes that are big enough to have enough beds, or just even places where we can afford it.
yeah.
Places where it flows well, it's nice, it's comfortable.
A
And
huge goal of
this
ours
like
is
blows
blows it out of the water.
blows it out of the
Yeah.
water.
A huge,
And one of our big goals, like Sadie, I
mhm.
think you were going to say it, is to have our
Sorry, I
own
didn't mean to interrupt you.
space. And
Mhm.
this space is like a dream of ours. Like if
Yeah,
we could envision what our space would look like, it would
it would
be
be
this
this.
space.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty particular about my spaces, which I think was why I loved the backcountry, because there's so many different, there's so much symbolism in earth. And so, you know, we go to slot canyons and we do inner child work and we talk about how the light gets in where you feel you're broken and you're not broken. And we go up to like arches and we use those as like the portal energy there, and like up to mountaintops and scream off mountaintops. Like, it's important for me to have a pristine experience for these people who are dedicating so much of their time. And I talk about this in Sacred Rebels, because Sacred Rebels is my mastermind where I teach people how to become certified in what I do. And one of those things I teach is the 5 senses of space holding. And if you can, you know, in your mind, visualize or create a space that creates literally the most incredible, perfect experience, that's my caliber. So to find this ranch was just, it was like a signpost where I was like, yep, it's supposed to happen. Yep, it's supposed to happen. And then I approached my guides, the shamans, and I said, what do you think about this? And I would love for you to come serve. I will take care of all the logistics. Here's the schedule. Here's what I'm thinking. This is the vision. This is the intention. And they were like, yes, absolutely. And then I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And so I have guides, friends who aren't just really knowledgeable in the medicine space as far as grandmother, but also are their own guides, they're physical therapists, they're holistic herbologists, like just incredible people that we've met on this path. And I invite them in too to be guides. So there's what we have like a staff of 14.
Yeah, the team is
Just
incredible.
incredible. And they're our friends. Like we've weaved this beautiful relationship with these people who are just so beautifully gifted, but not in the way where none of them have an ego where they feel like they're better than the other. And I think that's another thing that's really special or important for me at Medicina, is that we're all holding each other's hand.
All of them have very special, unique gifts that
Yeah.
are
And stories.
yeah, and when they're all brought to the table, it creates this incredible tapestry
Mm-hmm.
of people and experiences of facilitators and helpers to be able to help facilitate an incredible experience for everyone that comes.
Yeah. And I, you know, when I first launched Medicina, I mean, even the fact that I'm talking about it on a podcast is massive for me, because it's such a, I have chills all over my body. It's such a sacred thing, such a sacred creation that is way bigger than me, that I honestly didn't think I would ever talk about it publicly. But the more that we've done it, the more I hear spirit say, like, talk about it more while being mindful of it. Right. So,
Because before this, a lot of the times when you talk about it, like on social media or in emails, it was almost done in like code. So then people who then saw it or even saw the word medicina, then they're like, oh, I'm curious. What is this? Or they
yeah,
see pictures and videos. What is this retreat? And then they have to like follow a link and then read and learn more. Whereas this is like really
mostly
powerful.
the code was done because if you feel the call, you'll understand. Not, we were never being secretive as far as like to get views. In fact, I never marketed it and I never pushed it, because I knew that the people that felt the call would find it.
Absolutely.
It was mostly just the sacredness of it, which is why we're still being so careful about the location and the intricate things about it. Um,
Yeah.
But
So,
there
like with
is,
what I said, like everything is done in a way to help offer protection, protection for the people,
yeah.
protection for the
Hmm.
space, protection for all of it.
And that's one thing that's really important to me is the safety, because the first handful of years that I was sitting with grandmother, I was doing it privately, and I'm actually really grateful for that because nobody knew about it. So nobody could cast their judgments. So nobody had any idea, like it's just something that I wanted to do secretly and sacredly. And that's one thing that we really honor at Simply Wild Medicina is the sacredness of it. I have a lot of people who are in traditional religion spaces and they're wanting to find alternative modalities of healing, and they're wanting to be secret. They don't want to have their video. Of course, we have a videographer and photographer there, but if they don't want to be on video or photo, they don't have to be. It's a sacred place to be held with immense amount of staff and incredible food and incredible the atmosphere is just so special. So throughout all this, it just kept working. It just kept working. And the first one I did was all women, and it was in 2022. And
Can I speak on the all women one?
yeah, I was just going to say really quick the invite of even just creating this, because so many women would say, like, well, where do I go? Where do I go? And honestly, I couldn't say, well, go here, go here, go here, because I didn't have any other experience other than with my shamans. And so, of course, I would say, well, it derived from these different locations. If you feel like you have the space, the time, the energy, the money to go down to those places, whether it be Peru or Brazil or Costa Rica, please do that. But a lot of them are moms and they don't have the ability to do so. And so to be able to create an experience, an ethical, powerful experience for them. Um, Honestly, when I launched it, like we said, it was just to my email list, and I don't even know if it was to the full email list. I think it maybe was just to the people that had said yes to my containers, who had um, purchased and were a part of my courses. It filled up really fast. I didn't do any kind of promotion, and it was just all women. And even in there, when you create something that's never been done before in the way that I had created it, you just don't know if it's going to work. And after every experience, we mentioned this before, but I'll say this again. Every single breath that I take at Medicina is orchestrally placed, while also being mindful of the flow, right? If things have to be shifted and changed, they will. But I created something so prayerfully. I, as in, like, I was just the instrument, created the curriculum so that from the beginning to the end, it is created to not just support you in medicine, but also to help you with integration. And so a lot of women were like, well, I want to sit with medicine in a safe container with just women. So that was what our first one was.
Yes. So going back to like the intricacy, like how things are so intricately like laid out and planned out is really incredible, because so many times, every single time we've done Medicina, everyone's like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that we had like this class before this class, before this class, before this ceremony. And all of them are so perfect. They're so perfect because some of the biggest issues that people have, like the first time that they sit, and it took me a long time to get to this point, is the surrendering aspect,
Yeah.
being able to just surrender to the experience. And so we have classes right when you get there where we really work with you to surrender and
Yeah.
choose into the experience.
And yoga flows that are specifically talking about all the tools you can use in ceremony and
Yes,
all the things.
breath work. We do a breath work session where we work with you to kind of
Clear.
clear, get you settled in and almost like broken loose, to where it might even bring up some new intentions or help you settle into the space. Medicina isn't the type of experience where all of a sudden you just show up and then you're just thrown right into ceremony. We have it, Sadie has it set up in a way, a beautiful way, to where we really ease you into the process. We really prepare you before you sit. So in that way, when you do sit, you feel like you have the tools and the knowledge, and even your body is in a space where
Mm-hmm.
you're really prepared to
Mm-hmm.
be able to sit, and it's really special. So the one thing that was really powerful is I was there present for the all women's one. I didn't sit in ceremony, but it was really powerful to be able to witness this space where it was, because all the helpers, everyone was all female except one of the shamans was male. And it was really powerful to be able to witness that whole experience. And one thing I noticed that was really powerful was how much they almost in essence craved like the masculine energy. Like I'd come in to like clean the bathrooms or empty garbage, and the women would just like come up to me and want to like talk to me and ask me questions. And it was really fun to be able to see and witness that take place, because you could get this sense that like they really honored and witnessed and wanted like that divine strong masculine presence. And so when we did the all genders one, it was really cool to be able to bring both of them together and then to see and witness both of them really flow and function together. Because I think what we see in today's day and age, like outside in the normal world, is we almost see a clash and like clashing of masculine energy and feminine energy.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I love about Medicina, is we get to see this flow of it. We
Yeah.
get to see the masculine energy be more flowy and really blend in with the feminine energy, which is really powerful.
Yeah. When I very first tuned into the frequency, I was like, okay, I'll do all women's and then I'll do an all gender. And the all women's was super powerful, beautiful. And, I, as a trauma informed hypnotherapist and guide, I know that that's important to have. And I curate a lot of women only spaces. However, when I did the all gender, it changed everything for me. And I realized that I was doing a disservice in this particular situation. I do believe that there are some women only spaces that are very important. However, in Medicina, I was doing a disservice for the women to just do women only. And at that moment, I decided to kind of do something brave and just decide to do all gender always. And there's a huge vetting process. We have a huge application and a vetting process to um, allow people to come into these spaces, because there is a lot of prep that goes involved. And with that, we can really tune into people's frequencies and understand and feel the energy of the safety involved with both men and women. And I know there's wounds. I know there's wounds with the safety of men or the safety of women, even for men. So it was a huge,
And a lot of that can be healed in those
for
spaces,
sure.
like where you are, let's say you are a woman and you have a hard time with men, but now you're in a space where you get to reprogram
Yeah.
and recreate um, your connection that you
Mm-hmm.
have with masculine energy.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's really important for me, even with the guides. Like they're all trauma informed, they're all very highly trained, and they're all in couples. All of our guides are all in divine unions together, and they all have their special medicine, and that's something that's really important and special. Of course, people come single or together, or um, all gender is invited. Um, but it's just beautiful to be able to hold that space with that, and yeah, it's definitely something that requires a lot of integrity to hold. Something that I'm really, really grateful that we said yes to, that you've been on board with, and that we are able to carry on. Something that we really tried to be, keep the sacredness of, keep the privacy of. We're actually opening up this week. We're opening up the applications for May. The beginning of May, we're doing another, our next Simply Wild Medicina. So we do one in spring and one in fall. So just be, if this feels like it's something that's calling to you, applications available. You can also just DM Medicina or comment Medicina on my Instagram, and it'll send you the landing page that's password protected that you can learn more about. And you can also put in your application. And yeah, I just feel really grateful. I feel very blessed and grateful for Alma Sophia Rose for giving us her prayer and her blessing to continue the medicine that she's taught, all the lineages before her, um, all of the beautiful indigenous people that we support um, sacredly and secretly, that we don't talk about, that we feel really grateful that we can learn from. And the people in the community that feel that they've felt called to come and say yes to, and the guides and the shamans that come and sit. It's just all such a gift, and it feels like really, really, really special. We've had some dear friends of ours come and experience Simply Wild Medicina, and it's been really cool to see. We've had some friends who've sat many, many, many times, and to see them kind of be changed by Medicina too has been really special, because it's not just the medicine, it's the whole experience. And I'm going to end with this. This is something that I really wanted to share actually way before this hour and 20 minutes that we're in. I mentioned this because fear is something that we, I think, really misunderstand. And I said this earlier, fear I was terrified when I said yes to creating this container. And for many months, I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing next? Um, I've never been so scared in my life. And also on the other side of that, I've never felt more transformed, and nothing has ever felt more correct. And I mentioned earlier in the podcast how we are really malleable and conditioned between the ages of conception to 7. And really, our prefrontal cortex, which is like our critical thinking center of how we're able to distinguish whether fear is, oh my gosh, it's going to kill me, or fear is actually, it's not. It's just a different, more maybe developed emotion. That is signified through our prefrontal cortex, and our prefrontal cortex isn't developed until we're in our 20s. So in a lot of ways, we're not taught when we're in our 20s this new developed way of fear. We're only taught fear in like a couple different ways as children. And so what do we do when we're adults? When we feel fear, we immediately think it's just a bear that's going to attack us, or it's going to kill us in some way, or it's going to threaten our physical way of being. There is an advanced level of fear here in our world, in our lives, that isn't taught, that I wish was. And it's one thing that I teach that I'm so passionate about teaching. And it's that fear is a signpost. Fear is actually an emotion that can help us guide us. It's a compass. It's a way to guide us to our next level of transformation. The only reason we're feeling fear is because our physical bodies know that there's going to be change on the other side. But our minds think, oh, this change is unknown. This unknown means that I'm going to die. When really it's so much more advanced than that. So this can be your teaching for anybody who's older and has never had this teaching on fear. It's that fear is actually such a beloved signpost. And I say this because not only did I, with every creation, this isn't just Simply Wild Medicina, although Simply Wild Medicina was definitely my biggest fearful creation, but with Sacred Rebels, with backpacking, with the podcast, with the app, with Jeff leaving his job, like there's always been fear. Always, with everything, with having babies, with saying yes to anything, there's always fear because it's the unknown. And yet I would be the same person I was, and I would be living a very plain, painful life if I let fear win and I let fear be described as something that I learned as a child. So instead, I have completely changed my relationship with fear. And now I use fear as a significant signpost. So anytime I feel fear, I think, oh, I'm supposed to go towards that. Oh, that's actually a signpost for me to say, that's my next edge. That's my next level of growth. And this isn't just for me. Every single person that comes and sits with Medicina, or every single person that hears about it and is curious, there are many people. We get hundreds of applicants every time. Many people, they apply, they get accepted, and they won't say yes. And that's okay. That's okay. But they do that because they feel fear, and they think that the fear is actually what's telling them, oh, I feel fear. That means I'm not supposed to do it. When in all actuality, never once, I will sit here and tell you on my testimony of God, literally, that never has fear led me astray. In fact, the feeling I feel when I feel fear in a new way, like on a new edge, is much different than a fear of, oh, I'm going to be hurt, right? I still, in fact, it's almost like an attunement of my intuition, like intuition's a muscle. The attunement of fear is also a muscle. And so the more I listen and the more I lean in, the more I can tell if this fear is actually going to be a fear of, oh, don't jump off that cliff. That's literally going to kill you. Or absolutely say yes to this experience because it will absolutely change your life. And your body is just feeling the change that's happening and feeling the frequency difference. And that's the only reason why the fear is felt in your body.
You left me speechless. That was beautiful and perfect.
I feel like fear is, I have chills all over my body because I am so passionate about, I wish I could speak. This is my 2024 manifestation, that I can do a TED talk on fear, about how we can reprogram our relationship about fear. Maybe you never feel called to medicine. That's okay. But maybe there's something in your life that you know is calling you, but you're too scared to say yes because you have defined fear as a signpost to say no, to turn around. I challenge you to do it differently. I challenge you to see the fear, to feel it, and walk straight into it. Because I promise you, our life has completely changed because we walk towards the fear. It's everything.
Yeah. I mean, I would dare to say that I'm a pretty fearful person. I mean, I am one that will fear a lot of things, have anxiety about all sorts of stuff. I was always kind of an anxious kid. And so I would avoid fear at all costs. But all the times in this last, we'll say 4 years that I've pushed through seeing my shadows, that heavy, dark work, and pushed into that fear, man, I've just been transformed on the other side.
Yeah.
So
and it's fun,
that was
guys.
incredible. That was beautiful.
Thanks, honey.
Your speech on fear, like, so perfect.
Good.
Mind blowing.
Thanks.
Like, can we just all push through the fear and follow Sadie's counsel?
I do promise you, whether it's, you don't have to follow or say yes to anything I say, but I challenge you the next time you feel fear, don't turn around.
Yeah, push through it.
Walk through it.
See what happens.
It's the most transformative thing. And it's fun, you guys. It can be fun. Some of my most celebratory, fun experiences. I mean, we talked a lot about on this episode about how it's work and it's intense, but it's also so joyful.
And what's there to fear on the other side of it? It's not
especially if you listen to your 4Ts, like we talked about last podcast. If you're in alignment with your 4Ts, but you're scared because you're doing something new, do it. Do it.
Yeah. And if it can't hurt, harm, or kill you,
yeah.
like, what's there really to fear?
Yeah. Nothing.
So, nothing.
And maybe you just decide that that's not something you want to do again. And now you know. But you won't know unless you know. You don't know what you don't know. And I challenge you to just lean into learning more and becoming more curious within the fear.
Beautiful.
Okay. And that is your challenge, to become more wild within yourself, to say yes to fear and just tackle it head on. Love you so much. See you on the other side.